I remember waking up that morning with the sun peeking through the curtains, the way it always did. The coffee was brewing, and my wife was humming softly in the kitchen, just like she used to. The air smelled like toast and familiarity. I kissed her cheek, told her I loved her. She smiled. Everything felt normal. We had just celebrated our 30th anniversary. Nothing extravagant, just dinner at our favorite diner, where the waitress already knows our names and how I like my eggs. We laughed. We reminisced. We talked about growing old together, sitting on the porch, watching the grandkids run around the yard. I thought we were okay. I truly did. There were little things, sure. I was tired more often. I chalked it up to age. My hands trembled slightly when I held the coffee cup, but I told myself it was just the weather. My back ached more than usual. But nothing that couldn't be fixed with rest, or so I believed. Life felt stable. Familiar. Safe. I had no idea that everything I knew, everything I loved, was already starting to slip away. And that the person I trusted most would soon walk away when I needed her the most. It started small, so small, I didn't even think to mention it. I'd forget where I parked the car at the grocery store. I'd walk into a room and stand there, blank, wondering why I was even there. Names slipped from my mind, even of people I'd known for years. At first, I laughed it off. So did my wife. "We're just getting old," she'd say, chuckling, brushing her hand through my thinning hair. And I wanted to believe her. But deep down, I knew something was off. I began leaving the stove on. I once left the front door unlocked all night. Another time, I misplaced a check for the electric bill and swore I'd mailed it. When I found it weeks later, still tucked inside my coat pocket, I didn't tell anyone. I started writing lists. Notes to myself on the fridge. On the bathroom mirror. On my phone. They were everywhere, little reminders of who I used to be. I mentioned it once, casually, to my daughter. She said, "Dad, we all forget things. Don't scare yourself." And my wife? She said nothing. She just changed the subject. They didn't want to see it. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe denial felt safer. So I kept quiet. I kept smiling. I kept pretending everything was fine. But I knew. I knew I was slowly becoming a stranger inside my own mind. I finally made the appointment after waking up one morning and forgetting how to tie my shoes. I stood there, staring at the laces like they were some kind of foreign puzzle. My fingers wouldn't move the right way. My breath caught in my throat. I sat on the edge of the bed for what felt like an hour, shoes untied, staring at the wall. That was the day I told my wife, "Something's wrong." She didn't argue. She didn't say I was overthinking. She just nodded and said, "Okay." But there was a look in her eyes, one I hadn't seen before. A mixture of fear and something colder. Something distant. The doctor was kind. His voice was soft, the way people talk to children or people who are about to hear something they won't understand. He asked me questions, about the year, the president, the name of the street we were on. I laughed when I got some of them wrong. Laughed too loud. Then came the tests. The scans. The waiting. When we went back to get the results, the nurse didn't smile. That's when I knew. The doctor didn't say Alzheimer's. Not right away. He used softer words. Cognitive decline. Early signs. We'll monitor. But I heard the truth between the lines. I looked at my wife. She didn't hold my hand. She didn't cry. She just stared straight ahead, like she was already somewhere else. The silence in that room was louder than any words they could have spoken. We sat in the car afterward. No music. No words. Just the sound of the engine and the wind brushing against the windows. I turned to her, hoping for something, comfort, maybe. Reassurance. Just a squeeze of the hand. Instead, she looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. There was no fear. No sorrow. Just disappointment. Like I'd failed her. Like I'd broken something between us by getting sick. I asked, "Are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, flatly, "I can't do this." Those words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that hadn't even started yet. I tried to smile. To make a joke. "Well, I'm not dying today, am I?" She didn't laugh. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge, at all my little notes and reminders, my lifelines. Suddenly they looked pathetic. I wasn't the man she married anymore. I saw it in that one look. And maybe, just maybe, she was already preparing to leave. It happened on a Tuesday. Funny how I remember the day so clearly, but I struggle to recall what I had for breakfast this morning. I had forgotten to take the trash out, Again. I'd left the sink running. I don't even remember why. She came into the room, furious, her voice sharp like broken glass. I tried to apologize. I told her I was trying. That I knew I was slipping, but I was doing my best. And then she said it. I didn't marry you to take care of a sick man. Just like that. No warning. No pause. No softening of the words. They hit me like a slap, like cold water in winter. I stood there, speechless. I searched her face for any trace of love, any memory of what we'd been through together. But her eyes had already turned away. I can't live like this, she added. I didn't sign up for this. I wanted to remind her of the vows we made, in sickness and in health. I wanted to scream, to cry, to beg her to stay. But all I did was nod. Because I knew. I'd felt it in the silence. In her absence, even when she was right there beside me. She had already left me in her heart. All that was left was for her to walk out the door. She left on a Thursday morning, just as the sun was rising. I heard her suitcase rolling across the hardwood floor. I didn't get out of bed right away. I think a part of me hoped it was a dream. But then I heard the front door open. Then close. No words. No note. No kiss on the forehead. Just silence. When I finally got up, the closet was half empty. Her favorite sweater was gone. The picture of us at the beach, our anniversary trip to Cape Cod, was missing from the nightstand. She didn't even say goodbye. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. The world felt heavier than ever. Not just because I was sick, but because the person who had promised to walk through the storm with me had chosen to walk away. The hardest part wasn't the disease. It was being left behind while I was still here. People talk about death like it's the worst thing. But there are things worse than dying. Being forgotten while you're still breathing. That's one of them. The days blurred together after she left. I stopped marking the calendar. What was the point? Tuesday felt like Sunday. Mornings rolled into nights, and sometimes I forgot to eat. Sometimes I forgot I hadn't eaten. I would catch myself calling her name, out of habit, I guess. I'd reach for her side of the bed, cold and empty. I'd pour 2 cups of coffee, then pour one down the sink. No one came to visit. My daughter texted once, "Mom said you're doing okay." I didn't reply. What could I say? That I wasn't okay? That I was scared? That I sometimes looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back? I wondered what I had done wrong. Was loving her not enough? Was being human not enough? Every corner of the house held a memory, some beautiful, some painful. But now, they all echoed the same question. Why wasn't I worth staying for? I thought love was supposed to be stronger than this. I thought decades together meant something. But maybe people only stay when it's easy. And maybe I was never as loved as I thought I was. I ended up in a city shelter 3 weeks after she left. The bills piled up. I forgot to pay them. Then I forgot how. The lights were shut off first, then the gas. My daughter said she couldn't take me in. Too many responsibilities, she said. Too many complications. She sent me a phone number for services that could help. And that's how I found myself standing in line with a plastic bag full of clothes, in a place that smelled like bleach, old soup, and quiet despair. The shelter was full of men like me. Some older, some younger, all carrying stories they'd stopped telling. Eyes that had seen too much. Words that came slowly, or not at all. At night, I laid on a thin cot in a room filled with coughs and creaking metal beds. I clutched my wallet like it held my past, an old driver's license, a faded picture of my daughter as a child, a note my wife had once written that said, "You're my home." Now I had no home. The cold seeped through the walls and into my bones, but it wasn't the worst kind of cold. The worst kind was the one inside, the kind that settled in your chest when you realized no one was coming. No one was coming to check on you. No one was looking for you. You just disappeared. Quietly. When you're surrounded by nothing but silence, memories start talking louder. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the cracked ceiling, and suddenly I'd be back in the park, holding my daughter's hand as she learned to walk. I could hear her laughter, feel the tug of her tiny fingers in mine. That was real. That was mine. Then I'd remember my wife, how she used to run her fingers through my hair when we'd lie in bed talking about nothing. How she used to whisper, "Don't ever leave me." I hadn't. But she had. The memories came in waves. Some were warm, like sunlight through a dusty window. Others were sharp, like glass under bare feet. I remembered the sound of the front door closing behind her. I remembered the way she didn't look back. Sometimes I wondered if I had been a good husband. A good father. Had I given enough? Had I listened enough? Did they know how much I loved them? It's strange, The things you replay in your mind when you have nothing left but time. You try to hold on to the good, but the bad sneaks in, too. And in the quiet, you ask yourself the hardest question of all. Was I ever enough for the people I loved? Her name was Maria. She worked at the shelter, mid-50s, kind eyes, always wore a scarf no matter the weather. She noticed I wasn't talking much. That I sat in the same chair every morning, staring at the floor. One day she sat down beside me, handed me a cup of warm tea, and said, "Tell me something real." I didn't know what to say at first. No one had asked me anything real in a long time. But little by little, over weeks of shared silence and quiet conversations, I told her my story. About my wife. My daughter. The house. The diagnosis. The goodbye. She never gave me pity. Just presence. And sometimes, that's more powerful than any words. She helped me get into a program, a small assisted living place with dignity and warmth. Nothing fancy, but it had a window by the bed and a chair where I could sit and feel the sun on my face. And for the first time in months, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. Not the kind that pretends everything is perfect, but the kind that whispers, "You're still here. You still matter." Maria never tried to fix me. She just reminded me I was still a person. Not just a diagnosis. Not just someone left behind. A human being, still breathing, still capable of love, still worthy of being seen. It had been over a year when my daughter finally called. Her voice sounded careful, like she was tiptoeing over broken glass. She said she'd heard I was in a care home. Said she wanted to come visit. I told her she didn't have to, but deep down, I wanted nothing more. I spent the whole morning preparing. I shaved, put on a clean shirt. I even spritzed a little of the old cologne she used to say reminded her of home. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. Older, sharper somehow. Maybe life had hardened her the way it had me. We hugged, but it felt rehearsed. She sat in the chair by the window. Looked around. Said, "It's nice here." I nodded. Then came the questions I'd rehearsed in my head 1,000 times. Why didn't you come sooner? Did you know I was alone? Do you still love me? But I didn't ask any of them. Instead, I asked how she was. She told me about work. The kids. Her mother. Apparently, my wife had moved on. New place. Knew someone. She was doing okay. I nodded again. The visit lasted 23 minutes. When she stood to leave, she hugged me tighter. A flicker of guilt in her eyes, maybe. Or regret. Or maybe I just imagined it. I watched her walk away, just like her mother had. Only this time, I didn't cry. Because I realized something: the reunion I had dreamed of would never come. Not the way I wanted. Not with apologies or tears or words I had longed to hear. But it was something. And maybe that had to be enough. Forgiveness doesn't always come with an apology. Sometimes, it comes in silence, when you realize carrying the pain is heavier than letting it go. I never got a letter. No phone call. No tearful explanation. My wife never came back. She never even said the words, "I'm sorry." But one morning, as I sat watching the sunrise through the window of my small room, I decided to forgive her. Not for her. For me. Because holding on to that ache, the betrayal, the abandonment, the quiet cruelty of her walking away, it was poisoning whatever time I had left. And I didn't want to die bitter. I thought about all the years we had before the sickness. The laughter, the holidays, the way she used to fall asleep with her hand on my chest. Those memories were real. And maybe they were the best she could give. Maybe she simply didn't have more to give when things got hard. I'll never understand how love like that fades. But I forgave her anyway. And I forgave my daughter, too. For staying away. For coming too late. For not knowing how to hold a man who was slipping away piece by piece. They failed me, yes. But I've failed people too. We all do. That's the truth no one likes to admit. Forgiveness doesn't fix the past. It just frees you from dragging it behind you. And I wanted to walk lighter for whatever days I had left. I may forget names. I may forget faces. But I remember love. I remember what it felt like to be a husband. A father. A man with a home, with purpose, with a future. And even now, in this quiet place, where days pass slow and visits are rare, I still feel. I still hope. I still exist. I'm not what I used to be. But I'm not nothing. I'm still someone. And maybe someone out there, someone watching this, knows what that feels like. To be seen as less. To be forgotten. To be left behind by the very people who once promised forever. If that's you, I see you. You matter. You're still someone, too.